Last hour of the show, been a fun Friday here on the Morning Roast. Nice guy, Stephen Langford in for Joe Shaxter the Butcher, doing a hell of a job. Got Spadoni on the ones and twos to Sam Lubman. He's back there getting ready for Giants and Cardinals. But we're getting ready for Grizzlies and Warriors game number 6.
It's game 6 Warriors-Grizzlies for us. It's game 5 of the Giants and Cardinals in their season series tonight.
Lubman's all about it. He's all about it.
Nah, he's all about the Warriors stuff. He's ready for game 6.
He's wearing Warriors, Giants, and Shark stuff. He's got Shark socks on, Warriors hoodie, and a Giants hat. That guy's confused.
I rep all teams. I get around.
You surely do. Warriors game of the day, tip-off against the Grizzlies at 7 p.m. Warriors Live starts at 5:30 p.m. on 95.7 Game with Damon and Rattle, presented by Xfinity Sports Home, the ultimate sports hub experience. Let's get to our main man, a favorite of the roast, the one and only Anthony Slater, our 95.7 Game insider. And Anthony, let's start off with this. As we say good morning, game 6 between the Warriors and Grizzlies, another opportunity for the Dubs to close out the Grizz. Steve Kerr, what is the status with him? Let's start right there.
Not going to be there, it doesn't sound like. Mike Brown did did media yesterday. He's expected to do it again this morning at shoot-around. So no Steve Kerr tonight is the expectation, and maybe by a Game 7 because you can get through the weekend. But he'd have to I believe that you have to test negative 2 times in a 24-hour period.
So you think that makes a big difference for the Warriors tonight? Is that a big blow to the Golden State Warriors not having Steve Kerr on that sideline?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's in the prep meetings, on Zoom, coaching staff meetings, FaceTime, and Mike Brown, all that. He's even apparently, talking to them at halftime, postgame, everything like that. But I think it matters somewhat in game. But honestly, to me, I'm always it's more on the players type coach, especially once the coaches get you prepared for the game. Sure, there's some timeouts to be called in the game and some in-game adjustments, but I think the bigger factors tonight, how does Draymond play, how does Clay play, how does Steph play, not Steve being on the sideline.
Yeah, and continuing with guys who may or may not be on the court tonight, Otto Porter Jr. listed as questionable. Is that just the latest update with him? What have you been hearing, Anthony?
So they didn't practice yesterday. They actually slept in Memphis because it was an 8:30 local tip, and then didn't practice because they were flying back yesterday. I think listed him as questionable just because there wasn't really a status to update because they didn't practice. There was no chance to see if he could get on the court and how he'd feel. But when Mike Brown was asked about it yesterday, he was like, "I think he's fine." To me, the way they're messaging it out, I'd expect him to play tonight, but that's obviously not for sure. We'll probably know a little bit more after shoot-around in a couple hours.
No doubt about that. Otto Porter Jr. has been big. That's a big blow. It's Game 5. They try to burn the tape, Anthony, as we're saying. Flush it down the toilet, as Mike Brown said after the game. Down 55 at one point. And look, let's be honest. The Grizzlies, they've led basically for all but 45.7 seconds the last 2 games of the series. And they are a bit different without Ja Morant. The ball's moving around a little bit more. But Steven Adams, his impact, I didn't think he'd have this big of an impact, but he's been huge for the Grizz in these last 2 games.
I kind of thought his best days were gone. They're back in those Thunder series, and even the last. Remember him in New Orleans last year?
Yep.
I mean, he looked washed, to be honest. I think the Warriors are allowing it a bit more than they should. I mean, I know I've talked with Marcus Thompson plenty about this, but attack him more in space, isolation, maybe in some switches, high screen action, a little bit like they did with Jokic. He's laterally not what he used to be. He's a bruiser inside. Obviously, if you let him play his physical style, he will have an impact. But I just don't think they're taking advantage of his minutes like they should. And maybe that changes tonight. Maybe that's been part of the Steve Kerr FaceTime conversations over the last couple of days. But there's a reason we all kind of thought he was going to be played off the floor in this series, and I just don't think that they've leveraged that enough.
And which lineup, Anthony, do you feel gives the Warriors the best chance to do that with Steven Adams? Is it going to be that 3-guard lineup with Steph, Poole, and Clay, and Draymond and Wiggins? Are they going to have to play them a majority of the minutes tonight against Steven Adams in order to overcome that?
So if Otto Porter is available, I actually like starting Otto Porter. That gives you a big who can rebound but also is shooting it. I mean, in the 2 home games, I think Porter hit 7 threes. So if he's available, to me, your 6 best players in this series are Porter and then add Poole to the starters. So I would go start Porter and then play a lot of that small lineup. And, yeah, a bunch of high screens. I'd get Draymond as the screener a bunch because that's the way to not have him up there playing, traffic cop with the ball, but he's still in the action. He still needs to be guarded if he's the screener. So that's what I'd do, especially with those guys spread. And you can't, I think we learned the other night, you cannot play Draymond and Looney together.
No, you cannot. We saw Steven Adams, and I saw your clips in his story, Anthony, on The Athletic, where Adams and Jaren Jackson Jr. just chilling in the paint while Draymond is sitting there at the top of the key and Kevon Looney there. Look at the Draymond Green and the turnovers and everything. But I'm with you with Otto Porter Jr. I was very surprised they started Kuminga for the third straight game. It's not that Kuminga's doing anything wrong, but as a 19-year-old, we saw this with Kelly Oubre Jr. and his struggles trying to play with Stephen Curry. With all the movement going around in that starting unit and Draymond Green not being an offensive threat, a young guy is going to get lost in the spacing, when the screen, where to be. And so I thought the coaching staff kind of did Kuminga a disservice by starting him the last 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of somewhat in their conservative coaching approach where if you keep winning games, stick with it. Remember in the first round, Steph Curry by game 4, it was like, okay, he can start.
Right.
They were up 3-0, and it was like, just stick with the rotation that had ridden you there. Well, the Kuminga starting lineup had been bad the previous 2 games, but they had won. And I think their thought process on it was it steals a few minutes early. Like it gives, Otto Porter, as we're seeing now and have seen all season, is not some 32-minute per game player. I mean, you kind of need to pick and choose at this stage of his career. So I think they didn't want to overburden Porter, and that's why they wanted to keep the rotations as they'd been. But as you saw in the first round, once they lost Steph Curry, boom, was immediately back in the starting lineup. I think there's no chance Kuminga starts tonight after what's happened the last 3 games. But we'll see who that 5th starter is. To me, it is either Porter if healthy or Poole if Porter's not there.
Yeah, and that's the name I wanted to talk about next was Jordan Poole because, after getting off to a hot start in the first 3 games, 31 in Game 1, 20 in Game 2, and 27 in Game 3, he had 14 in Game 4, and his only shot that he made in Game 5 was a three-pointer. It feels like he's just been tentative with the ball, Anthony, ever since Ja Morant's been off the court. What have you seen from Jordan Poole these last 2 games to make him kind of get a little slower here?
Yeah, it's played out a little bit like the Denver series. If you look at his numbers, I mean, he was great the first 3 games, bad 4 and 5 against Denver. Same thing in this series. Tactically, I actually asked Mike Brown about this yesterday. I mean, I don't want to say excuse, but the reasoning they're trying to give for Poole's struggles a little bit the last couple of games is the fact that Adams is back in there. Memphis is just overloading the paint, as we talked about earlier. I mean, they're just completely ignoring Draymond, and especially in the minutes that Draymond and Looney were there together. Jaren Jackson's just sitting down there, and Poole has been effective in this series when it's spread wide open and he can get to the rim. It's just tougher to get to the rim right now because there's just 2 monsters sitting down there ignoring, the bigs. Yeah. So I think that's affected Poole, but also I do think there's been somewhat of a mindset change. He got hit in the head with a pass in Game 5, and then got crunched on a screen. You guys probably remember that sequence. Mm-hmm. He was asking out of the game briefly. Mm-hmm. He just looked out of it. And I have had some people wonder if that Ja Morant situation, and maybe we call it the Taylor Jenkins situation, kind of roping Poole into that controversy, maybe affected his mindset a little bit, but I mean, he wasn't even getting booed in Memphis. To me, it's not. They didn't make him some crazy. They tried to get him suspended. They tried to make him a villain. It didn't really work, so he shouldn't be very shook by it. I think he's just got to play better. He's got to be more aggressive getting to the rim, and they have to do a better job of spreading the floor for him, calling high screens, doing different stuff to get him going.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Anthony. Anthony Slater here on 95.7 The Game, the Morning Roast, or 95.7 The Game Insider, and Jordan Poole got popped there. I saw Steph Curry get popped on the screen. So Memphis has definitely turned up their physicality and points in the paint the last 2 games. The Warriors went in Game 4, Anthony. I know you know this. They were plus 48 when it came to points in the paint, something I didn't see happening at the start of the series. Well, the last 2 games since Stevens Adams has been inserted into the starting lineup, they're a plus 28 from points in the paint, and really not even that close when you look at how Game 5 went. So Draymond Green, that's the man of the hour. We heard Mike Brown yesterday say he's got to let it fly. Let it fly. He's basically getting gifted pre-game warm-up threes. Now, you look at his series here, last series against Denver, 48 points, 37 assists, 8 turnovers. He's got 28 assists and 20 turnovers. So will Draymond Green let it fly like he said last offseason? What did he say before the end of the regular season, Anthony? This is the time of year I hit those shots. So will he even attempt those shots tonight? Because he needs to, because the defense for the Grizzlies is not changing.
Yeah, I bet he shoots an early one, right? One of those, and then he hits it and roars it over to like where Joe Lacob is sitting. So it probably takes a few, but also, I mean, trust me, Memphis is fine if he wants to take 15 of those, you know. So I wouldn't expect it to just be a night where he's just letting it go. But I do think they can strategize better with, I mean, we've been talking about it kind of this whole interview, but if he's suddenly, you know, setting high, you know, 1-5, 1-4 pick and rolls, and then he's a dive man in the 4-on-3, right? What the lifeblood of this Warriors offense, especially in the playoffs back in the dynasty days, the Curry Draymond pick and roll. I think maybe some more of that where you force the big to come out on the floor, because you cannot just lay so far back on Draymond in those situations where, you know, you can just allow Steph Curry to come off that pick with nobody there to help. There was too much of the Draymond with the ball up top while Steph Curry's like on the baseline running pin down screens and back cuts and stuff like that the other night. To me, that plays into Memphis' hands. I'd go more traditional, you know, modern offense. They run the 80 pick and rolls tonight, essentially. Right. That's probably the way I would get Draymond going. And, you know, look, if he's wide open and it's late clock or mid clock and nothing's going, like, yeah, sure, take a 3 or 2, because as we all know, if he does hit a 3, that's like the biggest 3 in the building. It almost feels like 6 points with the way he celebrates it and then yells at the Memphis bench, like, get out here, even though they're not going to get out there.
Do you feel like that Draymond and Steph pick and roll can open up things for Steph, too? Because a big talking point after that Game 5 was Steph not shooting the ball within the first 7 or 8 minutes of the game. But going back and looking at it possession by possession, it didn't feel like he really had an opportunity to get a shot up because they were guarding him so well and weren't really drawing up plays for him. So do you think that that's going to open up things for Steph if they run the Draymond and Steph pick and roll to start?
Yes, because I think we've seen these last 2 series. By Game 5 against Denver, which, you know, remember, they lose Game 4 in Denver. Game 5 is like right down to the end, like nearly lost. The defenses kind of solve their stuff a little bit. You know, it's a difficult offense, particularly in the regular season, the Steve Kerr kind of motion offense to guard when you're not really that prepped for it. They're very unique compared to other teams. You go in and they kind of shock you because you're not used to how the point guard doesn't even have the ball. I got to chase him around. By Game 4 and Game 5 of a playoff series, when guys like Dillon Brooks have faced it for 2 straight weeks and prepped for it, they kind of know all the tricks and everything. And typically, it's harder for the Warriors to score using that type of system later in a series. So I do think, dating back to those Cavaliers series, like it's better this time of series to just kind of use your individual talent, go a little bit more traditional. Back in the Durant days, it was give Durant the ball in the mid post. Basically, right. This is what he was here for. So yeah, I think high screen would help unlock Steph, help unlock Draymond, help unlock everybody tonight. Jordan Poole too.
20 seconds or less. How does Game 6 end? Will you be back in Memphis on Monday, Anthony? I guess that's a better question.
I don't think so. I think I saw they're 8.5-point favorites. That's huge in the NBA. So
huge.
No Ja Morant. I mean, this would be a bad loss tonight if they lost. So I'm going to guess they win.
Yeah, I mean, talk about legacies and narratives and Monday on this show and Monday night. That would be, that'd be something else. So hopefully it does end tonight. Warriors would get 4 days rest. You would get a couple days off as well and enjoy your weekend. But Anthony, I'll see you a little later tonight. Warriors-Grizzlies, game number 6. We always appreciate the time.
All right, fellas.
Anthony Slater, 95.7 The Game Insider.